Deepinder started Zomato when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, it's a very good diplomatic post. He can be a good politician.
Yeah, I think the clear message is, boss, you have been doing this for 15 years. Give me at least 5 years.
Those kids in school, right, who used to complain about other people, they pushed me, I fell because I had an injury while I was playing. Dude, these are all first world problems, dude.
Making it sound as if cult is designing experiences to make you injured is almost malicious.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Indian Startup Desktop. If you're watching us for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel below.
Hello, hello,
Hey
hello,
guys.
hello, guys.
Awesome. Let's start off with some funny memes from this week. This is a recent Shark Tank episode that blew up, but this founder apparently mentioned that when you only copied others, you are shocked if India can build something groundbreaking. Check their expressions when sugarstrings.ai was pitching. Look at Aman's face.
Azhar was confused. Kunal didn't understand. Vinita thought they using sugar makeup.
You are so mean, dude. Okay, let's move on to another consultant joke. Being a consultant is like telling someone how to run a marathon while being on a treadmill that isn't moving. But let's move on to our weekly chatter. This is an interesting story that blew up, but cult is in trouble. So the Ken has come out with an article which says cult fills group classes got everyone's attention. Now cult injuries do, which essentially implies that a lot of people who've been going to cult for workouts and for training sessions have been dealing with a fair amount of injuries. And people are saying it's because the trainers don't give personalized suggestions and recommendations for every person. But look at this lady's message. I'm one of the people who got a cult injury. 3 years ago, I explained to the trainer multiple times that I have hypermobility and basically no muscle strength in my upper body, and he forced me to do a tricep overheads with a 10 kg dumbbell, partially tore a muscle. Saksham, what are your quick thoughts on this? I know you have some strong thoughts on cult.
Yeah, I think this, I mean, I do agree where this lady is coming from. I do understand that. Obviously, like today, almost everybody is, cult has become a household name almost, I would say. As India is moving towards fitness, everybody is going to a cult, has a gym membership. And unfortunately, cult today doesn't have either, I would say, the professionalism of the trainers or the amount of trainers itself. Considering the footfall that these gyms are seeing, I don't think there is care being put in with respect to sort of trainer to people ratio, for example. So it's one trainer sitting in a room and doing a class with 100 people. Obviously these things will happen, right? Fitness is not something that is sort of just that can be done like a generic thing for everybody. There has to be personalization that has to be brought in, and this is fair, right? All of us at different stages of our life are dealing with different physical issues, mental issues, etc. And yeah, these things I think have to definitely get better. But Pawan, what are your thoughts?
Maybe cult has scope to improve, or there will be new entrants who will solve this. But this post from Ken seems like those kids in school, right, who used to complain about other people. They pushed me, I fell because I had an injury while I was playing. Dude, these are all first world problems, dude.
No,
Like,
they're
go
not,
ahead,
Pavan. No, they're not. You're
get a different subscription, stop going to cult, get a personal trainer, change your trainer, complain. Like, you write an article about it. Are you serious? Okay, cool.
Yeah, like I fully agree with Pawan. Dude, like cult is like you mentioned, Aksham, cult has literally become a household name for tech bros gymming and everything. So it's only obvious that they are going to have a few. I mean, the number of people who work out and the number of trainers is going to be very disproportional. So creating a personalized plan for everybody, is just not feasible. So I'm not sure how this is cult's fault. And look, if you've done workouts before, you've done MMA, you've done multiple other forms of physical activity, injuries are bound to happen whether you have a great trainer or not, right?
Yeah, that obviously is there. Injuries are a part and parcel of your fitness journey, but I feel there are obviously guardrails you can put in place to try and avoid it a little bit.
But there are some major
No, I
issues.
don't understand.
Go on.
What is Ken writing an article about this? Like, Are you serious? Like you have so many better issues to write about. In the end, you are like writing about cult members having injury issues in gym. So obvious.
On that thought, look at this interesting post, by the GrowthX founder EOD. But he's mentioned that look, Ken has the best writers. They make you think, they help you learn. But the media industry is such that if you're positive, people will say you're a sellout. If you're not negative, you won't get subscribers or views. Anything in between, you'll be forgotten. The piece on cult was uncalled for. As someone who's been surrounded by fitness since childhood, this is bound to happen, blah, blah, blah. Making it sound as if cult is designing experiences to make you injured is almost malicious. That's the
Yeah,
point
that
I want to
Yeah,
make.
yeah. This
Yep.
is also like that because negativity sells. It's very easy to sell negativity than it's to sell positivity.
Yeah.
Uh,
What do
it
you think
goes
we are doing over
viral.
here,
People
Pawan?
talk. That's right.
awesome.
Let's move on to what in the actual your email and social media account can be accessed by income tax officers starting next financial year in these cases. This is an assault on our rights. Government should provide safeguards against misuse. Get a court order before this. Damn, this
What
sounds
do you
too.
think? This is not already being done?
Bro, I don't have a lot of insights over here. Does anybody else want to chip in?
I do actually want to
Nope.
share a small story. So I know somebody who actually works with the Indian Revenue Services, and obviously without naming anybody, one of the things that the government really cares about when it comes to tax frauds is people who are, committing these tax frauds above a certain amount of money. For example, only somebody making or doing committing a tax fraud of upwards of 20, 30 crores is who the government really cares about and want to go after, because that's who really the big fish is. Everybody else here, we are concerned about being honest tax-paying citizens, or doing a small scam of 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees here and there. I just want to go out of my way and say that nothing is going to happen to you guys. Unfortunately, India is not at a state wherein the government has time to think about people committing these small, petty tax frauds here and there. So sure, they can check emails. Sure, they can check, WhatsApp messages or whatever. Either ways, I don't think any of this is possible where the actual tax fraud is happening, right? So you can keep
So
doing
you
this
mean to
for
say
the middle.
that
No, I'm saying you can keep doing it for the middle class like you and us, who are either ways honest tax-paying citizens. The actual fraud segment that is, sort of happening in the country, the people who are doing this, I don't think there are being guardrails put in to avoid that. Those are not people who are
so you mean
checking
to say
their
that
updating their
we don't need to
emails.
be worried, just Pete needs to be worried about it.
Dude, we are all tax-paying citizens. I don't think we are honest tax-paying citizens, especially you, Saksham.
I am very honest, man. 100%. I'm fully honest.
Dude, why don't you reveal who this person, who your friend or relative is who's working in the Indian Revenue Service, dude?
Okay, guys, let's move on.
Okay, let's move on to another interesting topic that we've been thinking about talking for a while. But this post on Grapevine, which talks about which education app sites do you find valuable for training, and there are a bunch of names given, but which begs us to ask the larger question, right? Why does EdTech have such a bad rap? Now we know it's because of Byju's, but I'm sure there is more to it. Pavan, do you want to give your first thoughts over here?
I feel like India as a country is ready to invest a lot on education, but as soon as education doesn't translate into results, right, that's where people in India have issues with. Education as a subject, right? If you see the education entity like K-12 education or the people who are running schools, they sit on heavy profit pools. They have a lot of margins in that business. But the moment you see someone like a startup, like a physics wala or these new age channels like a Udemy or a Coursera or an academy who charges like large amount of fees for an uh, government exam kind of subject, right? Which there is a not so surety of translating into results, right? That's where people's issues start. Uh, Either they defend it, either they say that we paid like 1 lakh rupees of fees, but we did not get a government job, so on and so forth. That's where the tussle starts. India wants to pay for education, but they want assured results with it. That's
Yeah,
the problem there.
Saksham.
Uh, I I actually agree with what Pawan is saying. I also feel EdTech as a space has been extremely successful in a lot of the other countries. And while there always has been a lot of interest as well as promise shown by investors, right? I don't think a company has succeeded today in India because largely because I think folks have not. I feel edtech is a long-term game. It's not something that you can create massive value in the short term. And today, neither the founders nor probably the investors are actually having that long-term vision. Second is, people have to start thinking about sort of a more holistic approach to education instead of just maximizing their revenue. I think edtech as a space is when you're building for the next generation of the country, you have to really think about the value you're adding and not just think about how can I maximize my profit. I think that's where India so far has not struck it right. Having said that, I don't know, maybe Pavan, you might have seen there was a company that came on Shark Tank recently. I think the last week called Bambinos.live,
Hmm.
who were still able to get very good funding, right? Even when you talk about, okay, there's a funding winter going on, especially in the edtech space with so many companies shutting or booking losses, etc. Bambinos actually was able to get a solid funding. One, obviously, because of the founders, both the co-founders' background, very good uh, education, have worked in amazing corporates for the last 15, 20 years. But also the problem they're trying to solve, the way they're trying to solve it, and it was more experiential, which is what I think India has to start doing more, right? Which is why, look at it, right? Why is there no Duolingo from India? Or an equivalent of Duolingo from India, right? It's such a successful
Now
application.
there is,
There is Airlearn.
now there is. Unacademy only
Airlearn.
has launched this.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Look at this example also. Bambinos, right? They are promising you one thing: speak confidently, write brilliantly. They are promising you learning English.
Just
Yeah,
two
And if
hours a
these
week.
metrics are being delivered, that's when they're winning it.
yeah.
Outcome as a service, Pavan.
Yeah. EdTech also demands outcome as a service there.
Yeah, but
That's
look,
the thing, Now, if you're training for a government job, there are only 1,000 government jobs available, or 10,000, or whatever the number is, and there are like 10 lakh people applying for it. The success
yeah.
rate is already demeaned there.
Yeah, I think the demand supply problem definitely exists over there, but it's also important to note that there are so many really good edtech companies that are actually operating morally, but because they are overshadowed by the big boys like the Unacademies, the Byju's, the Upgrads, etc., they don't get a lot of coverage per se. But I completely agree, both of you,
Hmm.
edtech is a long-term game. However, I still feel like the regulatory body or whatever should essentially try to make NPS also as a core metric, because today majority of edtech companies are operating like lending companies where the sales rep forces somebody to take a loan for a course, which is crazy to think about, right? I know, in India education is sacred and whatnot, but these mis-selling practices, is the main reason why edtech has such a bad rap in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Correct.
let's move on.
Moving on to Amrish Rao's Gyan. So Amrish Rao, the CEO of Pine Labs, came out with a very interesting post recently. In fact, a day ago. Report to no one, but work with everyone. In the corporate world, everyone reports to someone, culminating at the CEO. But we are seeing an interesting shift. Many experienced professionals are struggling to fit into rigid hierarchies. Do they really need to? Why do we have managers? Their role is to guide and support. But what if a senior sales leader joins a young sales team? Should we force them into an org chart, or should they be free to contribute their expertise without them confined by reporting lines? The same goes for a 10x engineer. Why box them? Blah, blah, blah. Saksham, now that you're working for a company part of the Pine Labs family, why don't you go and tell Amrish that you don't want a manager? Let's see how he responds to this.
Oh my God. No comment section. We want to hear something from you
I
now.
I think okay, so I remember I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe like sometime the last time we did speak about uh, the kind of ageism that a lot of corporates still operate from. It's very, very good and sort of heartwarming to see some shift happening, at least in the mindset of a lot of these large organizations and sort of founders and industry leaders like Amrish. Maybe it is a result of market not being so good and we struggling to hire people or organizations struggling to hire. But if that is what is helping folks think differently, for me, the way I look at this is I at least see the future is bright when it comes to the culture that is going to be driven in corporates in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think it's a good mindset shift that is slowly happening, and it's very good to see.
Wonderful, Saksham. 100% right. We know that.
Spoken like a true
Yeah,
employee at Pine Labs.
damn, Sakshima. It's better we cut this out.
You know, these are my honest views, guys. Come on.
See, honestly, look at this list. I'm sure all of them want to apply for a job at Pine Labs.
Yeah, but I do agree with the entire post, and it's I think so step
Yeah,
in right direction. But I also do feel it's very hard. Instead of saying that no one needs managers and all, it's so hard to execute. If you don't need manager and all, how will you figure out what your day-to-day activities are? How will you keep yourself in check? These are few of the things which come in the better side of having a manager as well. But
yeah.
the thing is, we consider how the management needs to be driven in our organization. What is a good manager? What is he responsible for? What is not needs to be done? What is micromanagement? I think so. There needs to be better clarity among an organization other than just saying that we don't need a manager.
Yeah, I remember when I joined my previous company, Setu, my manager and co-founder Nikhil had mentioned something to me. He'd mentioned that there are role takers and there are role shapers. Now, at the time, I was trying to apply for a function that didn't exist, a role that didn't exist, and a JD that just wasn't there, which actually gave me a lot of room to to essentially create a JD with respect to my skill set. Now, there are things that I'm not good at. There are things that I'm really good at as well. Now, how can I essentially start adding value to the company by doing things that I'm really good at? So I completely resonate with the post, but like you mentioned, I'm not sure how easy it is to execute. I think the key term over here is accountability, right? How do you essentially drive and judge
Yeah,
accountability amongst people? And that's
yeah.
the hardest thing over here, I
High
guess.
agency, which is coming trending right now everywhere. High
High
agency people.
agency. Okay, okay.
Do let us know in the comments, guys. What do you think? Is this something good, bad? And do share your thoughts in the comments.
So moving on to the story of the week. Zepto's Aadit's fiery reply to Zomato's Deepinder Goyal. Um, just to give a little bit of context before I even read Adit's post, this is basically what Deepinder Goyal mentioned. Quick commerce sector burning rupees 5,000 crore per quarter, and he implied that 50% of it is because of Zepto. Now, Adit obviously wouldn't let this go. Listen what he mentioned. In today's article, Deepinder Goyal, whom I deeply respect as an entrepreneur, made an inaccurate statement about Zepto. His words were that quick commerce was burning 5,000 crore per quarter, implying that it was Zepto burning half of it. The statement is verifiably untrue and it will be clear when we publicly file our financial statements. However, I know Deepinder and I know he has only good intentions. This quote could have been an honest mistake. Deepinder started Zomato when I was 5 years old, and he had become a role model for the Indian startup ecosystem. I personally read all of his blogs and
Yeah.
was privileged to learn from and compete with Zomato. Damn, dude! I feel like the entire post was very respectful, and
It's a great post.
but
It's
when he
a
mentioned this,
It's it's
I somehow sensed that this is a slight dig at Deepinder. Like, bro, I'm competing with you, even though I was 5 years old when I started the company. No?
yeah. I think this is to say that you've
it's a
been doing
very
this for
good
15
diplomatic
years.
post. He can be a good politician.
Yeah, I think the
He can be a
clear
great
message is,
politician.
boss, you have been doing this for 15 years. Give me at least 5 years and let me run this organization. But I think it's great. It's also very encouraging, right? To see such a playful but respectable sort of banter.
Healthy competition seems like, at least from the outside, don't know inside.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but a couple of years ago, from who needs 10-minute delivery, what is QC doing to now, QC is such an integral part of all of our lives. That's telling something. And more than Zomato or Swiggy or anybody, I would literally give that recognition to Zepto. Zepto is the one who made this all possible, and everybody kind of followed suit. So kudos to Adit, and the Zepto team for actually doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, now there is a new kid in the town, Swish recently raised. Kudos to you guys, all the best.
Swish just
Swish.
raised $14 million, right? With a similar proposition, 10 minutes delivery. Yeah,
Okay,
it's good
so
to see.
yeah, let's move on, guys. Moving on to the Elafda of the week. An amazing experience with Vakilsearch. For those of you who don't know, Vakilsearch is a company registration platform. If you ever plan to use or start a company in the near future, chances are that you might land up, with Vakilsearch. The other companies out there are Startup Wala and a bunch of more. But look at Jay, the co-founder of Shrum's post. Another mediocre day with Vakilsearch. I had an architecture firm being managed by Vakilsearch. There is a form pending for over a year. Blah blah blah. Last time, Vakil Search team quickly regrouped the moment I wrote a LinkedIn post and resolved my queries in a few days. Later, their staff tried to push me into removing the post because they're only afraid of bad reviews, not poor experience. I used to feel bad for Rishikesh Dattar, who is the CEO, back then by believing that he probably has a bad team, but I don't know anymore. All of you guys are just awful. Blah blah blah. Everyone reading this, do not work with Vakilsearch. They will suck your blood dry. Pavan, I know you've tried, I mean, you've incorporated a company in the last 12 to 24 months. Do you want to give your quick thoughts over here?
Yeah, I know Rishikesh as well. I've been on a couple of calls with him. And Vakil sir does a good job, but my issues are more towards from where they are working towards with. Our government bodies are not as smooth as what's being
Yeah.
publicized. Our Digital India initiatives that we publicize, right, they are not the same. It takes close to like 60, 70 days to get a GST number, and you will not get your GST number until you go to your office, and you'll never receive a phone call from them as well. And you know why they are calling it office, right? I'll not go into nuances of that, but your documents do not move from a table to table, although the entire service is digital. And these that's the reality on ground. We can say like, haha, we are a digital country, everything is we have a DPI, we have UPI, all PIs. But this is the reality on ground. If you have to register a company, you have to go to 20 times to a bank, 10 times to a GST office, you have to go to 100 different places, then only your work will be done. And you know what you have to go by going to those places. Banks are still fine; they don't ask you extra money, but yeah, that's the reality. I don't think so. It's just Vakilsearch fault.
I don't fully
I
agree,
do
Pawan.
think that there would be.
I actually have a counter view. So, I work with an
Hmm.
organization who is essentially a registered investment advisor or an RIA, and they're based in Gurgaon. Since they are an RIA, they have requirement of a certain use case around procuring some e-stamps, for which we wanted them to open a new, essentially registered office in Delhi. It took them 2 weeks to get a new GST registered and get the operations kickstarted. So while I understand where you're coming from, I don't think it's just the government and the processes that we have to blame for. It's really about how much the organization, which is Vakil Search in this case, is taking accountability. And obviously, if there are these complexities with from a regulation and government perspective, right? It's also about what kind of support and proactiveness that the organization is doing, because you are working with the organization, right? It's not my fault uh, what government policies are, but I would expect Vakil Search, if they are my legal CA who is sort of helping me do this, to take 100% ownership and help me deliver outcomes. I think it's more about that.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You use Zomato, and there is a restaurant behind Zomato which will fulfill your order or will prepare your food for you, right? What can Zomato do if the restaurant itself says that I will not make the food for you or he has run out of stock? The max that Zomato can tell you is that this food is not available. It can refund it to you, or it will say that I'll compensate for your money, right? But it can't prepare the food for you, right?
I
I
think
get where you're coming from, but I also feel this is not an apples to apples comparison, right? In the space where you're operating with
Okay, I'll
government.
leave it to you there. If you get on ground, if you do these things, then you'll understand.
Okay, fair.
Probably you're taking reference from one of the things, but if you I've been on ground on this doing this, that's my experience.
Fair. So you're saying Vakil Search is great. They are actually following up with the
No, I'm not saying
organizations.
they're great. No, no, no. I'm not even talking about Vakilsearch here. I'm talking about their hands probably are tied. I'm saying that the problems are larger. They are behind the Vakilsearch from where they're getting data, where the things needs to be changed. They are just a UR wrapper on top of government services, though. And they exist because government is not doing a great job in presenting themselves out. Their user interface is not favorable. The things are not so easy to understand. That's why Vakil Search has a job. But beyond that, Vakil Search is just an interface for you to connect with government services.
All right. So that's it from this week's edition of the Indian Startup Desktop.
see you
See
next
you
week.
guys next week.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.